Hello, and welcome back to the MCYT Metazine. I'm Fallguy, here with ResidentEvilXisuma, whose piece covers all Minecraft YouTuber fanfiction as real-person fiction. So, how did you decide what topic you wanted to analyze for this zine?
This is kind of a topic that I've thought about for a while, and actually something that I've kind of had in the works for years, honestly. But the whole thesis of my essay is the opposite of something that I used to believe. I used to be sort of the kind of like, oh, it's all fiction and it's not, it's a completely separate thing and it doesn't count as RPF until I actually met fans of RPF, like traditional RPF kind of stuff, and listening to them talk about what RPF fandom is like, I noticed a lot of similarities between the way RPF fans talk about their stuff and the way Minecraft YouTube fans talk about their stuff, and was like, maybe this is kind of actually the same thing after all.
Interesting. So you were mainly inspired by hearing people's direct opinions on talking about their characters.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it was honestly like a lot of hockey RPF.
Yeah,
Those are because they're very abundant. So
they are indeed. What would you most like people to take away from your piece?
the thing that I most want people to take away from this, like obviously if it changes people's mind, that would be awesome. But even if it doesn't, I want people to come away with it with an informed opinion because like me, I feel like a lot of people have this belief about this separation between Minecraft YouTube and RPF out of ignorance of what RPF even is. And I'm hoping that if people read this, they will have more information. They'll be more informed, and their opinion will, have it'd be a little bit more solidly formed.
Yeah, I understand that. What are you proudest of in this piece?
Honestly, that I finished it at all. I actually started writing this like 2 years ago in 2023 and then just shelved it for a really long time. And when I saw that this scene was getting put together, I thought, oh, that'd be a really great opportunity to push me to actually finish writing that.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we were able to provide that deadline for you so you could get it done.
This is very
Uh,
helpful.
I'm really glad to see the final piece, yeah. Is there anything from this piece you'll be taking with you into the future?
I can't say anything specific about it. I did end up learning a lot more about sort of the history of RPF just doing the research for this paper, which I feel like gives me a few more interesting points that I can make, but not really anything specific.
Yeah, that's understandable. Is there anything else from this creative process that you'd like to share? Are there any details or specific aspects of your argument that you'd like to highlight?
There's this one thing that I didn't actually get into the paper, but back in the 1940s, according to one of my sources, there was this company, Albert Whitman and Company, that mass produced books where the main character was just actors, just their name pasted onto a character doing stuff, similar to the way AU fanfiction works today, basically, which I thought was very fascinating.
Hmm.
That sort of, as far back as you can even imagine, people have been doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly. So you have a very interesting argument that MCYT characters, as we see them, are akin to personalities we piece together of television and film actors through interviews and social media posts. Do you think the creators themselves think of themselves as more or less separate from their cubitos or characters than traditional actors from the roles that they play?
I think that a lot of these Minecraft YouTubers and other like streamers and stuff have a little bit more attachment to their image and don't see themselves as separately from their characters as film and television actors do. I think that's what fuels so many of them to even make these lists of boundaries in the first place, is this sort of lack of separation that they have in their heads between themselves and the persona they put on when they're streaming or making videos. But it is sort of this weird in between where they are not their everyday selves, nor are they fully a character. There's something somewhere in between those two things.
Yeah, I understand that. And I can also tell that probably doesn't seem super healthy for the creators.
No, I think it's got to be pretty difficult to be in this position where you're not fully letting people in, but it's still difficult to see people having these sort of critical analysis of things that you've done in a story on an SMP that maybe was just you playing the game, and now people are like hyper analyzing everything you do and just coming up with these very strange conclusions about you, or like diagnosing you.
Yeah, I think it very much depends on the creator's mindset, and I think that probably very few of them have a healthy way of interacting with those sorts of things.
And a lot of them, they don't have these sort of PR training that more traditional celebrities have. So it's definitely got to be a lot more difficult for them to deal with because they don't have the proper training to sort of interact with fans the same way. So there's a lot more intertwined interactions between the fandom and the creator.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely agree with that. I think that maybe there should be more resources available for them to learn those sorts of skills when they get started.
I think it would be very helpful for a lot of drama could be avoided, I think, if creators were a little more prepared to properly interact with their fandoms.
Yeah. So, as you point out, many people are hesitant to partake in RPF, or real person fiction, or real person shipping. Why do you think that is? What's so different about the persona of a real person from a fictional character? Or do you think the issue lies in people not understanding that it's a persona?
I definitely think that a lot of it is coming from this idea that anyone can be a streamer, because most of the streamers that we know, they're not these Hollywood celebrities that have been, working for their position, getting lots of like formal training for it for the most part. It's just random regular people that happened to get really popular. So I think that when people see that, they are putting themselves into their shoes and sort of projecting onto them and thinking about how they would feel in like a one-on-one interaction if like just some person you knew was writing fan fiction about you that was weird in some way or uncomfortable for you. So I think it's a lot of just this sort of projection and thinking of it in terms of what they would be comfortable with instead of what this other person who is not them is comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Lives in the divide in a way.
Yeah, it's a lot of that, I think. And I mean, you get a lot more of today where these people are making rules about what you're allowed to do with their OCs and their fictional characters. Even people that are trying to commercialize their stories are saying, like, you're not allowed to make this kind of thing for my characters. You got Anne Rice, who pursued lawsuits against people trying to write fan fiction. So, in some ways, people are even just as possessive of their OCs as they are their own like persona.
Yeah, I definitely I see that. Especially with the Anne Rice comparison, yeah. Many people in fandom also try to ask creators for their boundaries regarding art and fanfiction and respect some of those boundaries. Others argue those boundaries are set without a full understanding of fandom and fan creation and how it works. Some fan creators claim that the content creators should stay away from fandom spaces entirely. Within the argument you've built in favor of all MCYT fan creations as RPF, do you think any one of these claims is more appropriate than the others?
As much as I want to say that I think creators should just stay away entirely, I know that thinking about like if I somehow became a very famous streamer, I'd be all over that. I would want to know what people think of me and what kind of crazy crap they're making for me and what assumptions that they're coming to based on the way I present myself in my streams. I just think that's really interesting. So I know that I would definitely not be abiding by my own thoughts if I was in their position. So I really think that these content creators, they need to be more informed of what they're getting into, and they need to understand that there is sort of this unspoken contract they're making where if they enter these fan spaces, they may see things that they don't really like or want to see or appreciate or approve of, and that's just sort of how it is. I mean, that's the way it is when you go outside of your house anyway. There you're going to see people doing things that you don't like, and that's just sort of what you've agreed to by going out in public.
Yeah, you can't always control what your neighbors are doing necessarily.
The thing about boundaries is that it's not even the way that fandom, especially Minecraft YouTube fandom, conceives of it, is that a boundary isn't about controlling other people's actions, it's about how you respond to things. So if somebody's doing something that's irritating, your boundary is going somewhere else and not interacting with them. So it's not, in my opinion, it's not appropriate for these content creators to be making these rules of engagement, especially because they'll make these big claims about how they don't want people harassing anyone on their behalf. But as long as they're making these rules, it's going to happen. And it's basically being sanctioned by them, whether they say it is or not, because they're giving the people who want to do harassment on others and want to control other fans the ammunition they need to be able to try and control others.
Yeah, I understand that point about harassment very much. That makes a lot of sense. So, at the end, you tie it all back to the original fandoms that have heavily shaped what fandom can be. That's Star Trek, that's One Direction, that's Supernatural. It's a great connection, and people have been participating in RPF for much longer than many people think. And, throughout history, I'm sure people have seen personas of rulers and other famous people and made up stories about them. Fun to consider, but I digress. Do you think that MCYT lives up to trend-setting fandoms like those you've mentioned, or would you say it's more derivative than that?
I do think that it kind of occupies this strange, possibly unprecedented space. I'm not really huge into the RPF myself, the more traditional stuff, so I could be wrong about that. But it seems like, especially in Minecraft YouTube, compared to other sort of streaming personas, is that they have a persona that ends up a lot more fictionalized explicitly than other types of personas because they have this little avatar that you can sort of attach that personality onto. That doesn't always, I mean, you got Etho who looks like Kakashi and things like that, or people who just are like a little purple blob or whatever. That's not a human person, and you're putting this personality that you've observed in a streamer onto that little creature, and it creates a little bit more separation between the object of the RPF and the fandom in that way, which I think is sort of a unique aspect to Minecraft YouTube that is sort of an interesting development in the way RPF sort of exists. But at the same time, sort of a nothing new under the sun thing. All of the arguments that I've seen in Minecraft YouTube, going back looking at all of these sources about RPF, it's just the same arguments happening over and over again. You had huge divisions in the Metallica RPF fandom about whether it's okay to include the significant others of the band members because they aren't famous in their own right, so it would be weird maybe to include them. Sort of this whole idea of this, it's a persona, but it's not the person, with a lot of the boy bands like One Direction and how they're sort of manufactured in a way, a manufactured personality, and that's also pretty similar. So it's a lot of arguments that are happening the same in that way. It's pretty derivative, but it's also, I think, quite unique in its own ways.
Yeah, I understand that. That makes sense. Nothing new under the sun, but also, it is a bit strange at times. A bit different from everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I don't think you get as much of the making everyone into an avian in other RPF fandoms as you do in Minecraft YouTube.
No, I don't think so either. Well, that is all the questions I have for you. Do you have any questions for me before we wrap it up?
No, I'm not really a questions person, I guess.
Understandable. Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining me, and it's been a pleasure to work with you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure as well for me.
You can check out this piece and all the other pieces for the MCYT magazine when it releases. See you then!